She whispered to the bakery cashier, asking if they had expired cake, anything cheap for her son's birthday. She didn't notice the man in the corner booth listening to every word. What she didn't know, he was the most dangerous man in the city. And her question had just broken his heart. The fluorescent lights of Rossi's bakery flickered like dying fireflies as Clara pushed through the glass door at 10:47 p.m. Her uniform from Murphy's laundromat still smelled of industrial detergent and other people's sweat. Her fingers were raw from 12 hours of folding strangers' clothes, and her feet screamed with every step across the black and white checkered floor. Behind the counter, a teenage girl with purple streaks in her hair was wiping down the espresso machine, clearly ready to go home. The display cases were nearly empty, just a few lonely croissants and what looked like yesterday's cookies scattered across the shelves. "We're closing," the girl said without looking up. Clara's throat tightened. She'd rehearsed this moment during the entire bus ride here, but the words still caught like fish hooks in her mouth. "I know."
I'm sorry.
Do you have any expired cake? Or something from yesterday that you're throwing out?" The girl finally looked up, her expression shifting from annoyance to something softer. "Pity, maybe." Clara hated pity more than she hated the holes in her shoes. "It's for my son," Clara added quickly, hating how her voice cracked. "His birthday is tomorrow. He's turning 8, and I promised him a real cake this year, not just the 99-cent cupcakes from the gas station. I can pay something. I have $11. She pulled out a crumpled 10 and a single, her tips from the week carefully saved in the pocket of her jacket. The girl bit her lip. "Look, I'm really sorry, but Mr. Rossi throws everything out at closing. He's super strict about it. Health codes and stuff." Clara nodded, feeling the familiar sting of disappointment settle in her chest like a stone. Of course. She'd been stupid to even try.
Right.
"Yeah, I understand." She turned to leave, already planning how she'd explain to Luis that sometimes promises break even when you don't want them to. Maybe they could make a cake from scratch. Except they didn't have butter. Or eggs. Wait. Clara turned back. The girl was looking past her toward the corner of the bakery, toward a small table tucked against the brick wall where a man sat alone with a cup of coffee and an untouched cannoli. Clara hadn't noticed him when she walked in. Now she wondered how she'd missed him. He was maybe 40, dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Clara made in 6 months. His dark hair was swept back, touched with gray at the temples, and his face was the kind of handsome that belonged on movie screens. Sharp jawline, deep-set eyes that seemed to catch every shadow in the room. But it was his stillness that unsettled her. He sat like a man who'd learned to occupy space without asking permission, like gravity bent toward him instead of the other way around.
He'd been listening.
She could tell by the way his eyes met hers. Not with surprise at being noticed, but with the calm acknowledgement of someone who'd heard every word and had been deciding what to do about it. "Maria," the man said, his voice low and smooth as bourbon. "Lock the door." The purple-haired girl, Maria, moved immediately, flipping the sign to closed and turning the deadbolt with a metallic click that echoed through the empty bakery. Clara's pulse spiked. "I should go. I didn't mean to." "Sit, it wasn't a request." The man gestured to the chair across from him with one hand while pulling out his phone with the other. "What kind of cake does your son like?" Clara stayed frozen near the door. Every instinct screamed at her to leave. Men in expensive suits didn't help people like her. They didn't even see people like her. And men who made teenage girls lock doors at their command were the kind you read about in police reports. "I don't want any trouble," she said carefully. "Neither do I," he dialed a number, still watching her with those unsettling dark eyes. "Chocolate or vanilla?" I can't." "Mrs. Torres." "Clara Torres." "Mrs. Torres, I'm going to ask you one more time. Chocolate or vanilla?" Something in his tone made her answer. "Chocolate."
With.
He saw this video once with chocolate chips baked inside. He talks about it constantly. The man put the phone to his ear.
"Marco."
"I need you back at the bakery." Now a pause. "I don't care if you're in bed. Bring your keys," another pause. Then his mouth curved into something that might have been a smile if it reached his eyes. Because I'm asking nicely. He hung up and returned his attention to Clara.
Seat.
Please. This time she did, mostly because her legs were shaking. She lowered herself into the chair across from him, keeping her bag clutched in her lap like a shield. Your son, the man said. What's his name?
Luis. Luis Torres.
8 years old tomorrow. What else should I know about him? Clara's mind raced. Why are you doing this? Answering a question with a question. Smart, he leaned back, studying her like she was a puzzle he was deciding whether to solve. Let me guess.
You work 2 jobs.
Maybe 3. You walked here because the bus stopped running after 10 and you couldn't afford a cab. You're thinking about rent, about keeping the lights on, about whether Luis notices that you're eating less so he can eat more. And you're wondering if I'm dangerous. Every word landed like a punch. Are you? Very, his honesty was somehow worse than a lie would have been.
But not to you.
Or to Luis. Then why? Because I can. Because you asked for help, and that's rare enough to be interesting, he tilted his head. And because I heard the part you didn't say. The part where you'd rather beg for garbage than let your son know you can't afford a real cake. Clara felt heat crawl up her neck. I'm not begging. No, he agreed quietly. You're not. That's why I'm helping. The back door of the bakery banged open, and a round man in his 50s stumbled in, wearing pajama pants and a coat thrown over his undershirt. Clara heard the sound of ovens being turned on, the clatter of mixing bowls. She stood up fast enough to make her chair scrape. I can't pay for this. Whatever this costs. You already did. Moretti picked up his coffee cup and drained it in one swallow. You offered everything you had. $11 for your son's happiness. That's more than most people in this city would give. I don't understand. You don't need to, he walked toward the door, then paused with his hand on the lock. The cake will be ready by 1 a.m. Maria will wait with you. When it's done, she'll call you a car to take you home. I can't accept. Mrs. Torres, he turned to face her fully, and for the first time, she saw something human in his expression. Something that looked almost like pain. Let me do this one good thing tonight. Please. Before she could respond, he was gone, the door closing softly behind him. Through the glass, she watched him climb into the back of a black Mercedes that had appeared from nowhere. The car pulled away into the night, leaving Clara standing in a locked bakery with a stranger making her son a birthday cake at midnight, and absolutely no idea what had just happened. Maria cleared her throat. You want some coffee? This is going to take a while. Clara sank back into her chair, her $11 still clutched in her hand. Who was that? The girl's expression went carefully blank. Just a regular customer. He comes in sometimes. But the way her hands shook slightly as she poured the coffee told Clara everything she needed to know. That wasn't a regular customer. That was someone everyone in this city knew to fear. And he just bought her son a birthday cake. Clara sat at the corner table nursing her third cup of coffee, watching the clock crawl toward 1 a.m. Through the kitchen door, she could hear Marco working, the whir of mixers, the gentle slam of oven doors, the soft cursing of a man who took his craft seriously even at midnight. Maria had stopped pretending to clean and was scrolling through her phone, occasionally glancing at Clara with an expression that hovered between curiosity and concern. You really didn't know who he was? Maria finally asked. Clara wrapped her hands around the warm mug. Should I? Most people in South Brooklyn know Rafael Moretti. The name meant nothing to Clara. She'd only lived in the city for 2 years, moving from a smaller town upstate after Luis's father disappeared. She kept her head down, worked her jobs, and avoided anything that looked like trouble. Is he important? Maria laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. That's one word for it. Before Clara could ask what that meant, the kitchen door swung open. Marco emerged carrying a large white box, his face flushed from the heat of the ovens. He set it carefully on the counter, and when he lifted the lid, Clara's breath caught. The cake was perfect. 2 layers of deep chocolate, covered in smooth ganache that gleamed under the fluorescent lights. Across the top, rendered in skillful buttercream, was a T-Rex facing off against a superhero. Some kind of fusion character Clara didn't recognize, but knew Luis would love. Around the edges, chocolate chips were pressed into the frosting like tiny treasures. In the center, in green icing, "Happy 8th birthday, Luis." "How did you know?" Clara whispered. "About the dinosaurs and superheroes." Marco wiped his hands on his apron, looking uncomfortable. "Mr. Moretti called while I was working. Asked me to check your son's school records." Clara's wonder curdled into ice. "He what?" "Just the basics. The school secretary is. She's a friend." Mr. Moretti wanted to know what Luis liked. His teacher mentioned he's always drawing dinosaurs fighting comic book heroes during reading time. Clara stood up, so fast her chair tipped backward. "He accessed my son's school files? Who the hell does he think he is?" "Someone who wanted to make sure the cake was right," Maria said quietly. "Look, I know it's weird." "Weird? It's invasive. It's—" Clara grabbed her bag, her heart hammering. "I need to leave. Now." "Mrs. Torres, please." Marco carefully closed the cake box. Mr. Moretti meant no harm. He just wanted. "I don't care what he wanted." Clara's voice cracked. "I came here for an expired cake. Not this. Not someone digging into my life, finding out about my son. Do you know how that sounds? Do you know what kind of people do things like that?" The silence that followed was heavy enough to suffocate. "Yeah," Maria said softly. "We know exactly what kind of people do things like that." Clara looked between them, at Marco's resigned expression, at Maria's carefully neutral face. Understanding crashed over her like a wave. "Oh God. He's a criminal. He's a businessman," Marco said, but even he didn't sound convinced. "What kind of businessman has teenage girls locking doors at midnight? What kind of businessman makes bakers work through the night because he decided to be charitable?" Clara backed toward the door. "I can't take that cake. I can't have anything to do with." "Your son will have no cake tomorrow." Marco's voice was gentle but firm. "Luis will wake up on his 8th birthday, and you'll have nothing to give him except another broken promise. Is that what you want?" The words hit like a slap. Clara felt tears burning behind her eyes. "That's not fair." "No," Marco agreed. "Nothing about this is fair. Not your situation, not Mr. Moretti's interest, not the fact that sometimes the only people who help are the ones we're supposed to fear." He pushed the box across the counter toward her. "But that cake is real. It's made with good ingredients, baked with care, and decorated for a little boy who deserves something special on his birthday. Whatever Mr. Moretti is, whatever his reasons, that cake is innocent." Clara stared at the white box. Inside was everything she'd wanted to give Luis. Everything she'd failed to provide on her own. "Did he pay you already?" she asked quietly. "Triple my usual rate. Plus he owns the building, so my rent is basically whatever he says it is." Marco shrugged. "I was making this cake either way, Mrs. Torres. And if I take it, what does he expect from me?" Maria and Marco exchanged a look. "Nothing," Maria said. "Mr. Moretti doesn't operate like that. When he does something kind, he doesn't keep score. When he does something else," she trailed off. "Let's just say you know the difference." Clara approached the counter slowly, like the cake might bite. She reached out and touched the box, feeling the slight warmth still radiating from inside. Why would someone like him care about a stranger's kid? "Maybe you remind him of someone," Marco said. "Or maybe he's trying to balance scales that can never be balanced. Either way, the offer has no strings.
Take the cake. Give your son a birthday.
That's all." Clara picked up the box with trembling hands. It was heavier than she expected. "I don't understand any of this." "Most people don't understand, Mr. Moretti," Maria said, pulling out her phone. "I'm calling you that car now." As Clara waited by the door, the cake box held against her chest like armor. She couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just accepted something far more dangerous than expired pastry from a dumpster. She'd accepted kindness from a man everyone feared. And somehow, that felt like the most reckless thing she'd ever done. The black Mercedes that pulled up at 1:15 a.m. was not what Clara expected. She'd imagined something sleek and threatening, maybe with tinted windows dark enough to hide crimes. Instead, it was a regular town car, and the driver was a woman in her 60s with kind eyes and a cardigan. Mrs. Torres?
I'm Diane.
Mr. Moretti asked me to take you home safely. Clara slid into the back seat, clutching the cake box. The car smelled like vanilla air freshener and old leather. Normal. Safe. Which somehow made everything feel more surreal. They'd barely pulled away from the curb when Clara's phone buzzed. Unknown number. Against her better judgment, she answered. Hello. Mrs. Torres Rafael Moretti's voice was unmistakable. I apologize for the intrusion earlier. Marco told me you were upset about the school records. You had no right. You're absolutely correct. I overstepped, he paused. I have a tendency to be thorough. It's served me well in business, but it's inappropriate in situations like this.
I'm sorry.
Clara wasn't prepared for an apology. Okay. If you'd allow me, I'd like to explain something. Not as an excuse, but as context when she didn't hang up. He continued. This bakery has a wall in the back. Marco probably didn't show you. It's covered in photographs, children's birthdays, school fundraisers, community events. Every cake we've donated over the past 7 years. Why are you telling me this? Because I want you to understand that this isn't random charity. This bakery exists for a specific reason, and tonight, you reminded me of that reason. His voice softened slightly. Would you come back tomorrow afternoon? Around 2? There's something I'd like to show you.
No obligations, no expectations. Just
Context. Mr. Moretti, I appreciate the cake, but I think it's better if we... Please, the single word carried unexpected weight. 30 minutes of your time. Then you'll never hear from me again, if that's what you want. Clara looked down at the cake box on her lap. Why does this matter to you? That's what I'd like to explain.
tomorrow.
2 p.m. He hung up before she could refuse. Luis's face when he saw the cake made every moment of fear worth it.
Mom.
He bounced on his toes in their cramped kitchen, his eyes huge. Is that for me? Really for me? Happy birthday, baby, Clara's voice thick with emotion as she set the box on their tiny table, the one that wobbled because one leg was shorter than the others. When she opened the lid, Luis actually gasped. It's perfect. Look, it's Raptor Man. That's my made-up superhero, the one I'm always drawing. How did they know? Clara's stomach tightened with guilt. Lucky guess, I think. They sang happy birthday off-key in their cramped apartment while their neighbor banged on the wall for them to keep it down. Luis blew out the single candle Clara had found at the bottom of a drawer, slightly melted, but functional. When he took his first bite, chocolate ganache smearing across his chin, he declared it the best cake in the entire universe. Clara ate her own slice slowly, tasting the quality of the ingredients, the skill in every layer. This wasn't just a cake. This was art. This was something people with money ordered for important occasions. This was something her son deserved. And it had come from a man who apparently had the power to access school records with a phone call. After Luis went to bed, still talking excitedly about his cake, about showing his friends pictures tomorrow, Clara sat alone in the dark, staring at the business card Maria had slipped into her hand before she left. Just in case, Maria had whispered. He really isn't what you think. The card was simple, Rafael Moretti, with a phone number and an address. The same address as the bakery. Clara should throw it away. She should take her son, and the memory of his perfect birthday, and walk away from whatever this was. Instead, she found herself thinking about Moretti's voice on the phone, about his apology, about the wall of photographs he'd mentioned, 7 years of donated cakes. What kind of monster did that? At 1:55 p.m. the next day, Clara stood outside Rossi's bakery, wondering if she'd lost her mind. Luis was at a friend's house, finally getting to share his birthday cake with classmates. She told herself she'd just walk by, just see if the bakery was even open during the day. But here she was. And the door was unlocked. The bakery looked different in daylight, warmer, more welcoming. A few customers sat at tables, enjoying coffee and pastries. Everything seemed normal. Safe. Marco spotted her from behind the counter and nodded toward a door at the back. He's waiting. Clara's hands were sweating. I don't have to do this. No, Marco agreed. But maybe you want to. The back room was smaller than she expected. One wall was covered in photographs, just as Moretti had described.
Hundreds of them.
Children smiling behind birthday cakes. School groups with celebration desserts. Elderly people at what looked like nursing home parties. Every photo showed joy, and every photo had a small plaque beneath it noting that Rossi's Bakery had donated the cake. My sister loved this place. Clara spun around. Raphael Moretti stood in a doorway she hadn't noticed, dressed more casually today. Dark jeans and a black sweater that probably still cost more than her monthly rent. She used to bring me here when I was Luis's age, he continued, stepping into the room. We were poor. Poorer than you, probably. And once a year on my birthday, she'd save every penny she could to buy me a cupcake from this place. He moved to stand beside one particular photograph, a faded image of a young girl with dark hair and a bright smile, holding a small boy's hand. Her name was Isabella. She died when I was 12 and his voice was steady, but Clara heard the fracture beneath it. She got sick. Something treatable. Something simple if we'd had money for a doctor. We didn't. Clara's throat tightened.
I'm sorry.
This bakery was going to close 5 years ago. The owner couldn't keep up with rent, couldn't compete with the chains. Raphael touched the photograph gently. I bought the building. I pay the overhead. And I made one rule. No child gets turned away. Ever. For any reason. He turned to face her finally. You didn't waste my time last night, Mrs. Torres. You reminded me why this place exists. Why any of it matters. Clara looked at the wall of photographs, understanding crystallizing. This is your penance. Maybe he smiled, but it was sad. Or maybe it's the only good thing I know how to do. Clara stared at the photograph of young Raphael and his sister, seeing the worn clothes, the too thin faces, the fierce protectiveness in Isabella's eyes as she held her brother's hand. It was a mirror of her own life, the constant struggle, the impossible choices, the love that couldn't quite shield you from poverty's sharp edges. Why are you telling me this? She asked quietly. Raphael moved along the wall, his fingers trailing near the frames without quite touching them. Because you were afraid last night. Rightfully so. And because I need you to understand that when I helped you, it wasn't about power or control or expecting something in return. He stopped at a photo of a little girl holding a unicorn cake, her smile missing 2 front teeth. It was about making sure one more child gets to feel special. The way Isabella tried to make me feel special, even when we had nothing. Clara noticed details she'd missed before. The dates on the plaques spanning years, the diversity of faces, the sheer number of celebrations this bakery had made possible. You've donated hundreds of cakes. For 173, as of last month, Raphael's voice carried quiet pride. Birthday parties, school events, retirement celebrations for elderly folks whose families forgot them. Marco keeps track. He says it matters to document kindness. I think he's afraid I'll forget why we're doing this. Will you? He turned to face her, and for a moment, the polished exterior cracked. Every day I'm tempted. Every day the world shows me why kindness is a liability. Why caring makes you weak. Why people like me shouldn't pretend to be anything other than what we are. His jaw tightened. And then someone like you walks through that door, and I remember Isabella asking the grocery store owner if we could have the bruised apples he was going to throw away. The silence between them felt heavy with shared understanding, the kind only people who'd been hungry really understood. Marco said you own the building, Clara said carefully. And that you're a businessman. Marco is diplomatic. Raphael's mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. I run several businesses in this city, Mrs. Torres. Some more legitimate than others. I won't insult you by pretending to be a saint, but the bakery is separate. Completely separate. Marco and his staff are paid legally, taxed properly, operated by the book. This place is clean. He gestured to the photographs. This is the one thing I refuse to poison. Clara thought about the Mercedes, the phone call that accessed school records, The way Maria and Marco jumped when he spoke. What about everything else? Everything else is what allows this bakery to exist. Raphael's honesty was somehow more frightening than lies would have been. I'm not asking you to approve of my life, Mrs. Torres. I'm simply asking you to accept that complicated people can do good things. That someone can be dangerous and still remember what it's like to be helpless. Clara moved closer to the wall, studying a photo of teenage boys at what looked like a group home, gathered around a sheet cake decorated like a basketball court. Your sister, would she approve of what you became? The question hung in the air like smoke. For a moment, Clara thought she'd gone too far. Then Raphael laughed, but it was bitter. Isabella would have hated it. She wanted me to be a teacher. Can you imagine? He shook his head. She used to say I was patient enough to explain things, smart enough to make learning interesting. She had this whole future planned out for me. College on scholarships, a quiet life helping kids who reminded me of us. What happened? She died, and I was 12 years old with no one. Foster care, group homes, streets. I cycled through all of it. And I learned that the world doesn't reward patience or kindness or dreams about teaching. His voice hardened. It rewards power. So I acquired power. And the bakery is how you apologize to her memory. The bakery is how I keep her alive. Raphael touched the photograph of Isabella finally, his hand gentle against the glass. Every cake we give away is another conversation I'm having with my sister. Another chance to be the person she thought I could become, even if it's only for a moment. Clara felt tears threatening. She understood this. The ghost of someone you loved, the promises you couldn't keep, the desperate attempts to honor them anyway. I would have done the same. If something happened to Luis, if I survived and he didn't, I'd want to make sure other children got what I couldn't give him. Then you understand why last night mattered. Raphael turned to face her fully. You walked in asking for garbage. For expired cake. You were willing to settle for trash to make your son smile. And I saw Isabella in you, saw myself in Luis. I couldn't ignore it. So, this really was just about kindness? Nothing else? Nothing else, he confirmed. You owe me nothing. Luis owes me nothing. You'll never see me again unless you choose to. I don't collect debts on birthday cakes, Mrs. Torres. Clara wanted to believe him. Everything about the wall of photographs, the quiet reverence in his voice when he spoke about Isabella, the genuine grief in his eyes, it all suggested truth. But she'd been poor long enough to know that nothing was ever truly free. Thank you, she said finally, for the cake, for this explanation, for being honest about what you are. And what am I? Clara looked at him, really looked at him, at the expensive clothes that couldn't hide the hunger he'd known as a child, at the powerful stance that couldn't erase the memory of helplessness, at the dangerous man trying to honor a dead girl's dream. Complicated, she said softly. You're complicated. Raphael smiled, and this time it reached his eyes. That's the kindest thing anyone's called me in years. He walked her to the front of the bakery, where Marco was boxing up fresh pastries. For Luis, Raphael said simply. Growing boys need breakfast. Clara accepted the box, knowing she should refuse, but unable to deny her son anything good. As she left, Raphael called after her. Mrs. Torres? If you ever need anything, truly need it, you know where to find me. She nodded, but didn't look back. She couldn't afford to need a man like Raphael Moretti. No matter how much he reminded her that monsters could remember being human. Clara woke at 5:30 a.m. on Luis's actual birthday. She realized with a jolt that the midnight cake had been the night before his real birthday. Her internal clock never failed, trained by years of early shifts and the constant fear of being late. She lay in the dark for a moment, listening to Luis's soft breathing from the pull-out couch they shared in their studio apartment. The cake sat in their ancient refrigerator, still 3/4 intact. She'd saved most of it, wanting Luis to enjoy it on his actual day. Quietly, she slipped out of bed and padded to the kitchen corner. The box of pastries Raphael had given her sat on the counter, croissants, Danish, something chocolate that smelled like heaven. She'd hidden it last night, not wanting Luis to ask questions she couldn't answer. She pulled out the cake, setting it carefully on their wobbly table. Then she dug through her drawer until she found the small package of birthday candles she'd bought last month. 8 striped candles, never used because she'd had nothing to put them in. Her hands shook slightly as she arranged them on the cake. The number 8, made of wax and hope. Mom. She turned to find Luis sitting up, rubbing his eyes, his hair sticking up in every direction. He was small for 8. Too small, the school nurse had gently mentioned, but his smile was enormous. Happy birthday, baby, Clara whispered. The real one. Luis scrambled off the couch, his eyes going wide when he saw the cake with its candles. We still have it? I thought we ate it all. I saved most of it. For today. For your actual birthday morning, Clara lit the candles with their stove lighter, the small flames casting dancing shadows. Make a wish. Luis closed his eyes tight, his face scrunched in concentration. Clara knew what he was wishing for, the same thing he always wished for. A real home. Enough money that Mom didn't cry when she thought he was asleep. Maybe a dad who'd come back. Things she couldn't give him. He blew out all 8 candles in one breath, and they both cheered in whispers, mindful of their neighbors. What did you wish for? Clara asked, cutting him a generous slice. Can't tell, or it won't come true. Luis took his plate, then paused. Mom, how did you afford this cake? The real one, not gas station cupcakes. Clara had prepared for this question, but the lie still tasted bitter. I got a bonus. From work. For staying late. Murphy's laundromat gives bonuses? Her son was too smart for his own good. Sometimes. For good employees. Luis studied her face with those 2 old eyes, eyes that had seen his mother cry over bills, that had watched her water down milk to make it last longer, that knew every shade of her struggles. Okay, Mom. He didn't believe her, but he loved her enough not to push. They ate birthday cake for breakfast in their cramped apartment, sitting on mismatched chairs at a table held level by a folded newspaper. The heating was inconsistent, warm near the radiator, cold everywhere else. The paint was peeling in the corners. The window only opened halfway. Their landlord kept promising repairs that never came. But Luis was smiling, chocolate on his chin, and for this one morning, they were happy. This is the best birthday ever, Luis declared, his mouth full. Clara's throat tightened. Yeah. Because you kept your promise. You said I'd get a real cake, and I did. He reached across the table and squeezed her hand. I know money is hard, Mom. I know you work a lot, but you always keep your promises to me. The tears came before she could stop them, hot and fast, running down her cheeks in streams. All the fear from the past 2 days, all the guilt about taking help from a dangerous man, all the exhaustion from working herself to the bone, it crashed over her like a wave. Mom, don't cry. It's happy cake. Luis jumped up and wrapped his skinny arms around her. I know, baby. I know. She held him tight, breathing in the little boy's smell of him, chocolate and sleep and the cheap shampoo they shared. I'm just so glad you're happy. I'm always happy when I'm with you. God, she didn't deserve him. They spent the next hour doing birthday morning things. Luis opened his presents, a used book about dinosaurs she'd found at the thrift store, a pack of colored pencils, new socks that he actually needed, and they played his favorite card game while eating the pastries from Rossi's bakery. Where did you get these? Luis asked through a mouthful of croissant. The same place as the cake. The bonus covered some extras. Another lie. Another small crack in her integrity. But Luis's joy was worth it. Had to be worth it. At 7:30, Clara had to get ready for her shift at the laundromat. Luis would walk to school alone. She hated it, but she couldn't be late. They'd cut her hours twice this year already. Be safe, she told him, kissing his forehead. And Luis?
Don't tell people about the cake.
Okay. Why not? Because a Mafia boss bought it for you. Because I'm terrified of what it means. Because I don't know if kindness from dangerous men comes with invisible strings. Just, it's private. Our special thing. Luis frowned but nodded. Okay, Mom. She watched him walk down the street toward his school, his backpack too big for his small frame, and felt the now familiar twist of anxiety in her gut. She'd accepted help from Raphael Moretti. She'd taken his cake, his pastries, his story about a dead sister. And she had no idea what that decision would cost. But as she headed to the bus stop, Clara caught her reflection in a store window. For the first time in months, she didn't look quite so defeated. Because this morning, she'd kept her promise. Her son had his birthday cake. And for one perfect moment, she'd been enough. Even if it took a monster's kindness to make it possible. The whispers started before Clara even clocked in. She felt them the moment she pushed through the door of Murphy's laundromat at 8:47 a.m. The way conversations stopped mid-sentence, the way eyes followed her to the time clock, the way her coworker Shanice suddenly became very interested in sorting socks. "Morning," Clara said, tying on her apron. "Morning," Shanice's voice was tight. Clara had worked alongside Shanice for 18 months. They'd shared lunches, complained about customers, covered each other's shifts. Shanice had been the first person to welcome her when she'd started, showing her how to work the industrial pressers without burning herself. Now Shanice wouldn't meet her eyes. "Everything okay?" Clara asked.
Fine.
Just busy, Shanice grabbed a basket of wet clothes and hurried toward the dryers. The morning dragged on in uncomfortable silence. Clara folded clothes, processed orders, and tried to ignore the feeling of being watched. During her 10-minute break, she found Shanice and two other employees, Marcus and Kim, huddled near the supply closet. They scattered when they saw her. "What's going on?" Clara demanded, her patience fraying. Marcus, a college kid who worked evenings, looked uncomfortable. "Nothing. Just talking." "About me?" "Clara," Shanice started. "Just say it. Whatever it is, just say it." Kim, an older Korean woman who'd worked at Murphy's for 15 years, spoke carefully. "My nephew works at Rossi's Bakery, the one on 4th Street. Clara's stomach dropped. So
he saw you there.
Night before last. At closing time, Kim's expression was worried, not accusatory. "He said you left with Raphael Moretti." The name hung in the air like a grenade. "I didn't leave with anyone," Clara said quickly. "I bought a cake. That's all." At midnight, Marcus's eyes were wide. "With Moretti watching?" "I didn't even know who he was." "But you know now," Shanice said quietly. "Don't you?" Clara's hands were shaking. "I bought a cake for my son's birthday. That's it. I don't know Raphael Moretti. I don't work for him. I'm not involved in whatever." "Nobody said you were involved," Kim interrupted gently. "But Clara, people who get noticed by Moretti. That's not good. That's dangerous." "He just bought a cake." "He doesn't just do anything," Marcus cut in. "My cousin's boyfriend works construction. He said 3 guys got hospitalized last month for being late on a loan payment. Moretti's guys broke their hands. With hammers." Clara felt dizzy. "That's not." He wouldn't. But even as she said it, she remembered Raphael's words. "I'm very dangerous. But not to you. Not to her. But to other people. To men who crossed him. To anyone who got in his way. I'm just warning you," Kim said softly. "Be careful. Whatever happened at that bakery, whatever he wanted, be very, very careful." The rest of the shift was torture. Clara felt eyes on her constantly. When she went outside for her lunch break, she noticed a black sedan parked across the street. When she came back in, it was gone. Paranoia, she told herself. Just paranoia. But at 3:15 p.m., when a man in an expensive suit walked into the laundromat, everyone froze. He wasn't Raphael. This man was younger, maybe 30, with slicked back hair and a scar across his left eyebrow. He looked around the laundromat with obvious disdain, his eyes finally settling on Clara. "Clara Torres?" Her mouth went dry. "Yes. I have a message for you." He pulled out a business card and set it on the counter. "Mr. Moretti requests your presence this evening.
6 p.m.
The address is on the card." "I can't. I have my son. Arrangements have been made. A babysitter will arrive at your apartment at 5:30. She comes highly recommended." Your son will be safe. Clara's blood turned to ice. You know where I live. The man's smile didn't reach his eyes. Mr. Moretti knows everything he needs to know, Mrs. Torres. 6 p.m. Don't be late. He left without waiting for a response. The silence in the laundromat was deafening. Clara Shanice's voice was barely a whisper. What did you do? Nothing. I swear I didn't do anything. But Kim was backing away, her face pale. Marcus had already disappeared into the back room. And when Clara looked around, she saw fear on every face. They thought she was one of Moretti's people now. They thought she was dangerous by association. I need to go, Clara said, untying her apron with trembling hands. I need to. You're leaving early? The manager, Mr. Murphy, appeared from his office. Torres, you're scheduled until 6.
I'm sorry.
I have an emergency. Family emergency. Murphy's eyes went to the business card still sitting on the counter, and his expression hardened. Take the rest of the week off.
What?
No. I need these hours.
Take
The week off. His tone made it clear this wasn't a suggestion. I don't want trouble in my business, Torres. Whatever you've gotten yourself into, handle it on your own time. Clara felt her world tilting. Mr. Murphy, please. I have rent due.
I need this job.
You should have thought about that before getting mixed up with the Moretti family. He walked back into his office and shut the door. Clara stood there, her co-workers avoiding her gaze, a business card in her hand and terror in her chest. She'd thought Raphael's kindness was free. She'd been wrong. Whatever was happening, whatever he wanted, it was starting. And she had no idea how to stop it. At 5:15 p.m., Clara stood outside her apartment building, watching a middle-aged woman with kind eyes wait by her door. The babysitter Raphael had sent. A black car idled at the curb, and Clara had no choice but to get in. Clara recognized the driver immediately, Diane, the grandmother-type woman who'd driven her home 2 nights ago. Somehow that made it worse. Raphael's world looked so normal on the surface, so harmless, right up until you realized you were trapped in it. Mrs. Torres, Diane's voice was as warm as before. Please get in. I can walk, Clara said, even though her apartment was 3 miles from the bakery. Mr. Moretti was quite insistent that you arrive safely. What if I don't want to arrive at all? Diane's expression shifted to something like sympathy. Then you'll have a very angry boss wondering why you refused his invitation. And trust me, dear, you don't want Mr. Moretti wondering about things. It wasn't a threat, exactly. More like friendly advice from someone who knew the rules of a game Clara hadn't realized she was playing. She glanced back at her building. Through the 3rd-floor window, she could see Luis showing the babysitter his dinosaur drawings, completely oblivious to his mother's panic. If anything happens to my son, nothing will happen to Luis, Diane said firmly. Mrs. Chun has been babysitting for Moretti Family Associates for 12 years. She raised 4 children of her own. Your boy couldn't be safer. Moretti Family Associates. The words made Clara's skin crawl. She got in the car. They drove in silence through streets that looked different in the fading daylight. Clara watched people going about their normal lives, buying groceries, walking dogs, laughing with friends. None of them were being summoned by a crime boss. None of them had lost their jobs because a dangerous man had taken interest in them. Why is he doing this? Clara asked quietly. Diane glanced at her in the rearview mirror. You'd have to ask him. Is he going to hurt me? No, Diane's answer was immediate and certain. Mr. Moretti doesn't hurt people like you. What does that mean? People like me? Innocent people. Good people. People just trying to survive. Diane turned onto 4th Street. He saves his violence for those who deal in it themselves. Clara thought about Marcus's story, the men with broken hands, the hammers. That's supposed to make me feel better? It should. Because whatever Mr. Moretti wants tonight, it isn't to harm you. Diane pulled up to the bakery. But I'd listen carefully to what he has to say. The bakery was closed, but the lights were on. Through the window, Clara could see Raphael sitting at the same corner table where she'd first noticed him. He was alone, no suits or guards visible. Just a man with a cup of coffee, looking tired. She almost didn't go in. Her hand was on the door handle, ready to tell Diane to take her home, ready to grab Luis and run to another city, another state, anywhere that Rafael Moretti's influence didn't reach. Then Rafael looked up and saw her through the glass. The exhaustion in his eyes stopped her cold. He didn't look like a crime boss in that moment. He looked like someone carrying a weight too heavy to bear. Against every instinct screaming at her to run, Clara got out of the car. The bell chimed when she entered. Rafael stood, buttoning his suit jacket in that smooth, habitual gesture. "Mrs. Torres, thank you for coming. Did I have a choice?" "No," he admitted. "But I appreciate the courtesy of you not making this difficult." Clara stayed near the door, her arms crossed. "You got me fired today. Did you know that? Mr. Murphy told me to take the week off, which is code for don't come back." Rafael's jaw tightened. "I heard. That wasn't my intention." "Your intention doesn't matter. People saw your man walk into the laundromat. They think I'm working for you now. They're terrified of me. They're terrified for you. There's a difference. Either way, I've lost my job. I have rent due in 6 days. I have a son who needs to eat." Her voice cracked. "I should never have taken that cake. I should never have come back here." "You're right." Rafael gestured to the chair across from him.
Please. Seat.
"You're not in trouble, but we need to talk." Clara didn't move. "Why did you send that man to my work? Why did you send a babysitter to my home? Why can't you just leave me alone?" "Because you're in danger." The words hit like cold water. "What?" Rafael's expression was grim. "The night I bought Luis's cake, I was careful. I paid in cash. I didn't use my usual car. I made sure we weren't followed.
But someone saw us anyway."
Someone who works for a man named Vincent Calabrese." The name meant nothing to Clara, but the weight of it clearly meant something to Rafael. "Calabrese runs the docks.
We've been
at odds recently. Territorial disputes, business disagreements. The kind of conflicts that make men like him look for leverage." Rafael's hands clenched into fists. 2 nights ago, one of his men saw me with you. Saw me treat you with what appeared to be familiarity. Care. Understanding crashed over Clara like a wave.
He thinks I matter to you.
Yes, but I don't.
I'm nobody.
I'm just. Calabrese doesn't know that. And even if I told him, he wouldn't believe me. Because men like me don't buy birthday cakes for strangers without reason. We don't send drivers to ensure random women get home safely.
We don't, he paused.
We don't show kindness without expecting something in return. Clara sank into the chair, her legs suddenly unable to hold her. "So, because you decided to be nice, I'm now a target. I'm afraid so. This can't be happening. This can't." She looked up at him, anger cutting through fear. "Fix it. You did this, so fix it." "I'm trying. That's why you're here." Rafael sat across from her. "I need you to trust me for the next few days. I need you to let me protect you and Luis until I can convince Calabrese you're nothing to me." "How do you plan to do that?" His expression was answer enough. Someone was going to get hurt, maybe killed, all because she'd asked for an expired cake. "I want to leave," Clara whispered. "I want to take Luis and leave the city tonight. Then Calabrese will definitely assume you're important to me. Running will only confirm his suspicions. So I'm trapped." "You're protected," Rafael corrected. "There's a difference." Clara looked at this man who destroyed her life with his kindness. "I wish I'd never met you." "I know," Rafael said softly. "For what it's worth, so do I." Clara didn't sleep that night. Rafael had sent her home in Diane's car with promises of surveillance, protection, safety measures she didn't fully understand. Mrs. Chun, the babysitter, had stayed until Clara arrived, reporting that Luis had been an absolute angel before slipping out with a grandmother's smile that felt surreal given the circumstances. Luis was asleep now, curled up on their pull-out couch, clutching the dinosaur book she'd given him for his birthday. He looked so small, so vulnerable. Clara sat by the window, watching the street below. At 2 a.m., she spotted the black sedan parked 3 buildings down. Rafael's people, presumably, watching. protecting. Or maybe Calabrese's people, watching for an opportunity. She couldn't tell the difference anymore. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Mrs. Torres. It's Raphael. Are you awake? Obviously. I need you to listen carefully. Tomorrow, go about your normal routine. Take Luis to school. Run your errands. Act like everything is normal. Everything isn't normal. I don't even have a job to go to. Then find ways to stay visible. Go to the library, the grocery store, the park. I need Calabrese to see that you're just an ordinary person living an ordinary life. That there's nothing connecting us except a coincidental encounter. Clara's laugh was bitter. Except for the guards outside my building. That seems pretty connecting. They'll be discreet. You won't see them unless you need to, he paused. I've also deposited money into your account. 2 months' rent, plus living expenses. Before you argue, it's not charity. It's compensation for the job you lost because of me. I don't want your money. Would you rather be evicted? Luis deserves stability, Mrs. Torres. Take the money. Use it to keep him safe while I resolve this situation. Clara wanted to throw the phone. She wanted to scream. Instead, she said, how long will this take? I'm meeting with Calabrese tomorrow night. If I can convince him you're relevant, this ends quickly. If not, he trailed off. If not, then we adapt. But Clara, and I'm using your first name now because I need you to hear me, do not, under any circumstances, try to handle this yourself. If you see anything suspicious, if anyone approaches you, call me immediately. Don't be brave. Don't be stubborn. Just call. She wanted to refuse. Wanted to tell him she didn't need his protection or his orders. But Luis shifted in his sleep, making a small sound, and the fight drained out of her.
Fine.
Good. Try to get some sleep. Sleep, she repeated hollowly. Right. Morning came too fast. Clara got Luis ready for school with shaking hands, making his lunch, checking his backpack 3 times. Everything normal. Everything routine. Mom, you're acting weird, Luis observed, slurping his cereal. Just tired, baby. Is it because you lost your job? Her hands froze on the coffee maker. How did you? I heard you on the phone last night. You said you don't have a job anymore. His eyes were worried. Are we going to be okay? Clara knelt beside him, cupping his face. We're always okay. You and me, remember? We're a team. But who's going to pay rent? 8 years old and already worried about rent. Clara's heart broke. I'll figure it out. I always do. Your only job is to be a kid, okay? Let me handle the grown-up stuff. He nodded, but she could see he didn't believe her. They walked to school together. Clara couldn't bring herself to let him go alone today. She spotted Raphael's people twice, once in a gray sedan that crawled past them at the corner, once in a woman who seemed to be walking the same route, always half a block behind. At the school gate, Luis hugged her tighter than usual. Love you, Mom. Love you more. She watched him disappear into the building, then turned toward home. She'd taken maybe 10 steps when the woman who'd been following stopped beside her. Mrs. Torres? I'm Agent Reeves. FBI, she flashed a badge, so quickly Clara barely saw it. We need to talk about Raphael Moretti. Clara's blood turned to ice. I don't know what you're. You were seen leaving Rossi's bakery with him 2 nights ago. Last night you met with him after hours. This morning you're being followed by known Moretti associates. Agent Reeves's voice was calm, professional. You're either working for him, or you're in danger from him. Either way, we can help. I'm not working for anyone. I barely know him. Then why is he protecting you? Because Clara stopped. How could she explain? It's complicated. It always is with Moretti. Agent Reeves handed her a card. We've been building a case against him for 2 years. If you have information, anything about his operations, his associates, his businesses, we can offer you protection. Real protection, not the kind that comes with strings attached. Clara thought about Raphael's face when he talked about Isabella, about the wall of photographs, about the exhaustion in his eyes last night. I don't have any information. Mrs. Torres, please understand, Raphael Moretti is not a good man. Whatever story he's told you, whatever kindness he's shown, it's manipulation. That's what he does. He finds vulnerable people and uses them. He bought my son a birthday cake. Agent Reeves blinked. What? That's the whole story. I asked for an expired cake at his bakery. He overheard and bought Luis a fresh one. That's it. That's the extent of my involvement with Rafael Moretti. The agent studied her face. And now someone named Calabrese thinks I matter to him, which I don't, and Rafael is trying to fix it so I can go back to my normal life. By meeting with Calabrese. By negotiating. By doing whatever it is men like him do in back rooms while people like you wait and hope you don't become collateral damage. Agent Reeves's voice softened. You seem like a good person, Mrs. Torres. Don't let Moretti drag you into his world. Once you're in, it's almost impossible to get out. She walked away, leaving Clara standing on the sidewalk with another business card she didn't want. FBI on one side, Mafia on the other, and Clara, trapped in the middle with a son who deserved better than any of this. She checked her phone. A text from an unknown number. Agent Reeves works organized crime. She's persistent but harmless. Don't worry. Clara looked around, suddenly aware of how many people might be watching. Rafael's guards.
FBI surveillance.
Calabrese's men. How many eyes were on her right now? She walked home quickly, her skin crawling with the weight of invisible attention. This wasn't protection. This was a cage with no walls. Clara made it through the day, by sheer force of will. She went to the library like Rafael suggested, checked out books she couldn't concentrate on. She bought groceries she didn't need, spending some of the money he'd deposited, money that felt like poison in her account. She pretended everything was normal while cataloging every face she saw, wondering which ones were watching her. By 2:45 p.m., when it was time to pick up Luis from school, her nerves were frayed to breaking. She arrived 10 minutes early, standing with the other parents outside the chain-link fence. Most of them were on their phones, chatting with each other, existing in the casual comfort of people whose lives weren't falling apart. Clara envied them desperately. The bell rang. Children poured out like a flood, and Clara's eyes locked on Luis immediately. He was laughing with a friend, his backpack bouncing as he ran. Normal. Safe. Exactly as he should be. Mom. He waved, breaking away from his friend. Can we go to the park? Just for a little bit. She should say no. She should take him straight home where Rafael's people could watch them properly. But Luis's face was so hopeful, so beautifully unconcerned with the nightmare their lives had become. 20 minutes, she heard herself say. Then we have to go home. They walked the 4 blocks to Morrison Park, Luis chattering about his day. A science project, a game at recess, a girl named Emma who'd shared her cookies at lunch. Clara tried to focus on his words, to be present, but her eyes kept scanning the street. The gray sedan was gone. She couldn't spot the woman from this morning. Where were Rafael's people? At the park, Luis ran straight for the swings. Clara stood nearby, her purse clutched tight against her side, hyper-aware of every person, every movement, every car that passed. You're being paranoid, she muttered to herself. Everything's fine. Her phone buzzed. Rafael, where are you? She typed back, Morrison Park. Luis wanted to play. The response came instantly, get out.
Now.
My people lost visual on you 10 minutes ago. Clara's heart stopped. She looked up, scanning for Luis. He was still on the swings, pumping his legs, flying high. Luis, she called, trying to keep her voice calm. Time to go, baby. 5 more minutes. You said 20. Now, Luis. We need to. The white van pulled up fast, tires squealing. Clara's instincts screamed a second before the side door slid open. 2 men jumped out, ski masks, gloves, moving with professional precision. Clara ran toward Luis, screaming his name. She saw him look up, confused, saw him start to slow the swing. The first man grabbed Clara from behind, one arm around her waist, a gloved hand clamping over her mouth. She bit down hard, tasted leather, kicked backward with everything she had. Where does he keep the books? A voice hissed in her ear. Where does Moretti hide his records? She couldn't breathe, couldn't scream. She thrashed wildly, her vision tunneling. Emon. Luis had jumped off the swing mid-arc. He hit the ground running, his small body a missile of pure terror and love, launching himself at the man holding Clara. Let her go. Let my mom go. Luis, run. Clara managed to scream as the hand slipped from her mouth. Run. But her son didn't run. Her brave, stupid, beautiful son wrapped his arms around the man's leg and bit down on his thigh with all the force an 8-year-old could muster. The man cursed, his grip loosening for just a second. The second masked man grabbed Luis by the back of his shirt, lifting him off the ground. Luis's legs kicked uselessly in the air.
Clara saw red.
She drove her elbow backward into her captor's ribs, twisted free, and threw herself at the man holding her son. She clawed at his mask, at his eyes, screaming like an animal. Where are Moretti's books? The first man roared, grabbing her hair and yanking her back. Tell us, or the kid. A black SUV jumped the curb, scattering park benches. Doors flew open and 4 men poured out. Raphael's men, Clara realized with dizzy relief, recognizing one from outside the bakery. The man holding Luis dropped him immediately. Luis hit the ground hard, crying out. Gunfire cracked the air, a single shot, a warning. The masked men sprinted back to their van, which was already moving before they fully climbed inside. It screamed away, leaving tire marks on the park path. Clara ran to Luis, dropped to her knees beside him. Baby, are you okay? Are you hurt? He was crying, shaking, but when she ran her hands over him, checking for injuries, she found nothing broken. Just scrapes on his palms from landing hard. Mom, you're bleeding, Luis sobbed, pointing at her face. She touched her temple, felt the wet warmth. The man had pulled her hair so hard he'd torn skin. She didn't care.
I'm fine.
You're so brave, baby. So brave. She held him against her chest, feeling his heart race like a hummingbird's. One of Raphael's men approached cautiously. Ma'am, we need to get you somewhere safe.
Now.
My apartment isn't safe anymore. Mr. Moretti is expecting you. Clara looked around the park. Other parents were pulling out phones, calling police. Someone was filming. In the distance, sirens wailed. This was real. This had actually happened. Men had tried to kidnap her, had grabbed her son, because of a birthday cake, because Raphael Moretti had shown her kindness. Okay, she whispered, pulling Luis to his feet. Okay. They got into the SUV, Luis trembling in her arms. As they pulled away, Clara saw Agent Reeves standing across the street, phone to her ear, watching them leave. The agent had been right. Collateral damage. That's all Clara and Luis were now. She'd been so stupid to think kindness from a monster could ever be free. The estate was nothing like Clara expected. She'd imagined something gaudy. Gold fixtures, marble columns, the kind of vulgar wealth that screamed new money and blood money. Instead, Raphael's home was a restored Victorian on the outskirts of the city, surrounded by iron gates and stone walls that looked a century old. Inside, it was elegant and understated, dark wood, leather furniture, tall windows that let in the fading afternoon light. But the guards were everywhere. Men in suits with earpieces, positioned at every door, every window. The beauty couldn't hide what this place really was, a fortress. Luis clung to Clara's side as they were led through hallways lined with oil paintings. He hadn't spoken since the park, just pressed against her with his arms wrapped tight around her waist. This way, please, a woman in her 40s, clearly staff, not muscle, guided them to a large sitting room. Mr. Moretti will be with you shortly. Can I get you anything? Water? Juice for the boy. We're fine, Clara said automatically, then reconsidered. Actually, yes. Water. Please. Luis needed something normal. Something to ground him. They sat on a leather sofa that probably cost more than Clara's yearly salary. Luis's hand found hers, squeezing tight. Mom, are those men going to come back?
No, baby.
We're safe here. But what if? The door slammed open with such force that both Clara and Luis jumped. Raphael strode in, his face a mask of barely contained fury. Behind him, 3 men in suits filed in, all looking like they'd rather be anywhere else.
How?
Raphael's voice was deadly quiet, which somehow made it more terrifying than shouting. How did they get within 50 feet of her? Sir, we had eyes on the apartment like you ordered. One of the men started. She wasn't at the apartment. Raphael's controls snapped, his voice rising to a roar. She was at a public park with her son, and somehow, you lost track of her long enough for Calabrese's men to make a move. The park wasn't on her usual route. We didn't anticipate. Raphael moved so fast Clara barely saw it. He grabbed the man by his collar and slammed him against the wall, hard enough that a framed photograph fell and shattered. You didn't anticipate? His voice was pure venom. Your job is to anticipate everything. Your job is to make sure that woman and her child are so protected that not even a stray dog gets within arm's reach. Luis whimpered, burying his face in Clara's side. The sound cut through Raphael's rage like a knife. He froze, still gripping his man's collar, and slowly turned to look at them. Clara saw it happen, the transformation from monster back to man. The fury draining from his face, replaced by something worse. Horror. Self-awareness. He released his lieutenant, stepping back. Get out. All of you. I want reports on my desk in an hour, and I want solutions, not excuses. The men fled. Raphael stood in the middle of his beautiful room, breathing hard, his hands clenched into fists. After a long moment, he smoothed his tie, buttoned his jacket, and turned to face Clara and Luis with a carefully neutral expression. I apologize. You shouldn't have seen that. Clara's voice was ice. Is that what you are? When the cameras are off? Yes, his honesty was brutal. That's exactly what I am. Luis peeked out from Clara's side, his eyes red from crying. Are you going to hurt those men? Raphael looked at the boy, really looked at him. Clara watched something crack in his expression. He moved slowly, carefully, and lowered himself into a chair across from them so he wasn't looming. No, he said quietly. I'm not going to hurt them. I was angry because they failed to keep you and your mother safe. But I won't hurt them. But you hurt other people. The question hung in the air. Clara should intervene, should protect Luis from this conversation, but she found herself frozen, wanting to hear Raphael's answer. Yes, Raphael said.
Ido.
People who hurt others first. People who break agreements, who threaten innocence, who operate without rules in a world that desperately needs them. Like the bad men at the park? Exactly like them. Luis was quiet for a moment, processing. Then, my mom says you own a bakery, that you give cakes to kids who can't afford them. Raphael's jaw tightened.
Ido. Why?
Because someone I loved very much died when she shouldn't have. And I'm trying to make sure other people don't suffer the same way. Luis studied him with those 2 old eyes. Mom says you're complicated. Despite everything, Raphael's mouth twitched. Almost a smile. Your mother is a very wise woman. She's the best mom ever. I believe you. The woman returned with water and what looked like hot chocolate for Luis. He took it gratefully, sipping while staying pressed against Clara's side. Raphael watched them, and Clara saw something in his face that made her chest ache. Longing.
Loss.
The ghost of a life he'd never have. You remind me of someone, Raphael said softly to Luis. My sister used to protect me the way your mother protects you. She was fierce. Fearless. She would have liked you. What happened to her? Luis. Clara started, but Raphael held up a hand. She got sick, and I was too young to save her. But she made me promise something before she died. She made me promise to be kind whenever I could, to help people who needed it, to remember that having nothing doesn't mean being nothing.
Luis nodded solemnly.
Mom says that too. She says we're rich in the ways that matter. Raphael's eyes met Clara's, and she saw the pain there, raw and endless. Your mother is right, he said. And I'm sorry my world touched yours. I'm sorry my kindness came with consequences I should have anticipated. I'm sorry those men scared you today. It's okay, Luis said. You're trying to fix it, right? With everything I have. Luis seemed satisfied with that answer. He drank his hot chocolate while Clara sat in stunned silence, watching her 8-year-old son accept comfort from a man who'd just thrown someone against a wall. Complicated didn't begin to cover it. Luis fell asleep at 8 o'clock, exhausted from adrenaline crash. One of Raphael's staff, an older woman named Sophia who had grandmotherly warmth despite working for a crime boss, settled him in a guest room with soft blankets and a nightlight. He'll be safe here, Sophia promised. I raised 5 boys. I know how to handle nightmares. Clara thanked her, then found herself alone in the hallway of Raphael's estate, uncertain where to go or what to do. She felt unmoored, like a boat cut loose from its anchor. Mrs. Torres. She turned to find Raphael at the end of the corridor. He'd changed from his suit into dark slacks and a black sweater, looking more human and somehow more dangerous, without the armor of expensive tailoring. Can't sleep? He asked. Would you be able to? Fair point. He gestured toward a set of French doors. I'm going to the rooftop. You're welcome to join me, or I can have Sophia show you to your room. Clara knew she should choose the room. Should put distance between herself and this man who destroyed her life with his good intentions. Instead, she followed him. The rooftop was transformed into a garden. Potted trees, flowering plants, comfortable furniture arranged to take advantage of the view. The city spread out below them, a carpet of lights stretching to the horizon. Raphael stood at the edge, hands in his pockets, staring out at the skyline. Clara joined him, maintaining careful distance. Isabella and I used to sneak onto rooftops, he said quietly, when we lived in the shelter downtown. She said being up high made our problems look smaller. Did it work? Not really. But it was nice to pretend. He glanced at her. Your son is remarkable. Most kids would still be crying after what happened today. He's had to be strong. We've been through a lot. His father? Clara's jaw tightened. Left when Luis was 3. Said poverty wasn't what he signed up for. Haven't heard from him since. I could find him, if you wanted. No, the word came out sharp. I don't want your kind of help with that. Raphael nodded, accepting the boundary. They stood in silence, the city breathing below them, car horns, distant sirens, the ambient hum of millions of lives being lived. Why did you help me? Clara asked finally. The real reason. Not the story about Isabella, not the bakery's mission. Why me, specifically? Raphael was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, do you know what it's like to have power, Mrs. Torres? Real power? The kind where you snap your fingers and people's lives change. No. It's intoxicating and isolating. Because once you have that power, every interaction becomes transactional. People fear you, or they want something from you, or they're trying to manipulate you. Nobody just sees you. He turned to face her. But that night in the bakery, you saw past the expensive suit. You saw past the fear on Maria's face, past the way Marco jumped when I called. You looked at me and saw someone who could help. Not someone to be afraid of. Just someone who had what you needed. I didn't know who you were. Exactly, his voice was soft. For one moment, I was just a man who could buy a cake. Not a boss. Not a monster. Just someone capable of a simple kindness. Do you know how rare that is in my life? Clara felt something shift in her understanding. So this was selfish. You helped me because it made you feel human. Probably, he smiled sadly. Does that make it worse? I don't know. Maybe it makes it more honest. She wrapped her arms around herself against the night chill. Agent Reeves told me you're not a good man. That you manipulate vulnerable people. Agent Reeves is correct. But you don't feel like manipulation. You feel like she searched for the right words. Like someone trying very hard to be 2 different people at once. And failing at both. Raphael laughed, but there was no humor in it. That's the most accurate assessment anyone's ever made of me. So, which one wins? The man who gives away cakes, or the one who breaks people against walls. Whichever one is necessary that day, he met her eyes. I won't lie to you, Clara. I won't pretend to be better than I am. I've hurt people. I'll hurt people again. That's who I am, what I've built. But this, he gestured to the rooftop, the garden, the quiet space away from violence. This is who I wish I could be. The man Isabella wanted me to become. Clara thought about Luis sleeping downstairs, about the terror in the park, about the impossible choice between accepting help from a monster or facing monsters alone. I hate that I need you, she whispered. I know. I hate that my son's safety depends on how well you can negotiate with other criminals. I know that too. She turned to face him fully. But I'm grateful.
For the cake.
For the protection. For letting Luis see that complicated people can still choose kindness, even if it's selfish kindness. Even if it comes with a cost. Raphael looked stunned. You're grateful? Don't get used to it. I'm also furious, terrified, and seriously considering taking Luis and disappearing the moment this is over. She held his gaze.
But yes.
Thank you for giving my son a birthday. Thank you for trying to fix the mess your kindness created. Thank you for being honest about what you are. You're a remarkable woman, Clara Torres.
No.
I'm just a mother doing whatever it takes to keep her child safe. Even if that means accepting help from Raphael Moretti. They stood together in the garden above the city, two people from different worlds, bound together by circumstance and birthday cake, and the complicated truth that monsters and humans were often the same person. What happens tomorrow? Clara asked. Tomorrow I meet with Calabrese. I convince him you mean nothing to me. I give him something he wants more than leverage. Raphael's expression hardened. And then you and Luis go back to your normal life. No more guards. No more danger. No more me. You make it sound simple. It won't be. But I'll make it happen. He looked at her. I promise you, Clara. Whatever it costs, I'll fix this. Don't make promises you can't keep. I don't. His voice was absolute. When I make a promise, I keep it. No matter what. Clara believed him. God help her, she believed him. And that terrified her most of all. 3 weeks later, Clara stood outside Rossi's bakery, staring at the help wanted sign in the window. The meeting with Calabrese had happened. Clara didn't know the details. Raphael had kept his promise about that, shielding her from the darkness of his world. All she knew was that 2 days after the rooftop conversation, he'd called to tell her it was over. Calabrese believes you're nothing to me, Raphael had said, his voice carefully neutral. You're safe now. Both of you. What did it cost you? Nothing you need to worry about. But she'd seen the news. A warehouse fire in Calabrese's territory. 3 men arrested on federal charges. A shift in the city's underworld power structure that even civilians noticed. Raphael had paid. She just didn't know how much. The guards had disappeared. Her life had returned to something resembling normal, except she still had no job, and the money Raphael had given her was running low. She'd applied everywhere, but the rumors followed her. Nobody wanted to hire someone who'd been seen with Raphael Moretti. Except, apparently, Raphael Moretti himself. The door chimed as she entered. Marco looked up from behind the counter, and his face broke into a genuine smile. Mrs. Torres. We've been hoping you'd come by. I saw the sign. Clara approached slowly, feeling uncertain. Is this real? Or is this Raphael trying to? It's real, a familiar voice said. Clara turned to find Raphael emerging from the back kitchen, wearing an apron dusted with flour. The sight was so unexpected she almost laughed. You bake. Terribly. Marco's been teaching me. He untied the apron, setting it aside. The position is legitimate, Clara. Manager position. You'd handle scheduling, inventory, community outreach, donations. No connection to my other businesses. Clean salary, proper taxes, benefits. Marco needs the help. It's true, Marco added eagerly. We've expanded the donation program. It's gotten too big for me to manage alone. We need someone organized, someone who understands what it means to need help. Clara looked between them, suspicious of kindness even now. Why me? Because you understand the mission, Raphael said simply. Because you asked for an expired cake for your son, and that question changed everything. Because I trust you to run this place the way Isabella would have wanted. And you'll just…
What?
Stay away? Let me work here, without interference. I'll visit occasionally. It's still my sister's memorial. But your job will be independent. Your decisions will be yours. He handed her a folder. Employment contract. Take it home, read it, have a lawyer look at it if you want. No pressure.
No strings.
Clara opened the folder, scanning the contents. The salary was fair, not generous, but enough to support herself and Luis. The benefits included health insurance, something she hadn't had in years. The job description was exactly what Marco had outlined. What about Calabrese? What if he… Calabrese is no longer a concern. For you, or anyone else, Raphael's tone made it clear the subject was closed. Clara looked around the bakery, at the photographs on the wall, at the cases full of pastries that would feed families who needed them, at the community bulletin board covered in thank you notes and children's drawings. This was real work. Important work. Work that mattered. Can I think about it? She asked. Of course, Raphael buttoned his suit jacket. Take all the time you need. Clara took 2 days. She read the contract 3 times. She called a legal aid lawyer, who confirmed everything was legitimate. She talked to Luis, who'd been drawing pictures of the bakery and asking when they could visit Marco again. On the 3rd day, she signed the contract. Her first day was controlled chaos, learning the systems, meeting the suppliers, understanding the donation schedule. Marco was patient, teaching her the rhythms of the bakery business. The work was hard but satisfying in a way the laundromat had never been. By her 2nd week, she'd reorganized the donation process, reaching out to 3 new shelters and 2 elementary schools. The community responded eagerly. More requests came in than they could fill. We need to expand, Clara told Marco one afternoon. Maybe add a 2nd baker? Or extend hours? Talk to Mr. Moretti. It's his building. Raphael came by the next day. Clara presented her plan professionally: costs, projected impact, community need. He listened without interrupting, then approved everything immediately. Do what you think is right, he said. Isabella would want the bakery to grow. He didn't stay long.
He never did.
But before he left, he paused at the door. You're good at this, Clara. Really good. Thank you, she hesitated.
Raphael?
The night on the rooftop you said you'd fix things. You kept your promise. I told you I would. What did it cost you? His smile was sad. Nothing I wasn't willing to pay. 6 months later, Rossi's bakery had become a cornerstone of the community. Clara managed a staff of 5, coordinated donations to 12 different organizations, and personally delivered birthday cakes to families who reminded her of herself, struggling, desperate, trying so hard to give their children moments of joy. Luis came to the bakery after school most days, doing homework in the corner booth where Raphael had first overheard Clara's plea. He'd started helping Marco sometimes, learning to mix batter, carefully decorating cookies for the donation boxes. Mom, look, he called one afternoon, holding up a cookie shaped like a dinosaur. I made it myself. Clara's heart swelled. Her son was happy. Federal safe. Thriving in ways she'd once thought impossible. She'd built this life not in spite of Raphael Moretti's intervention, but because of it. Because one dangerous man had remembered being a desperate child. Because kindness, even complicated, selfish, dangerous kindness still mattered. Raphael rarely visited now. His world and Clara's had separated cleanly, the way he'd promised. But sometimes she'd arrive in the morning to find a note on her desk. Approved funding for new ovens.
RM.
The shelter on 5th Street needs cakes for 20 kids this weekend.
RM.
Thank you for doing this. Isabella would have loved you. RM. Clara would read these notes, file them away, and return to her work. She owed Raphael Moretti nothing. He'd made that clear from the beginning. But she'd learned something important through all of this, that people were capable of both darkness and light. That monsters could remember their humanity. That a single act of kindness, asking for an expired cake in a midnight bakery, could change everything. One evening, as she locked up, Luis walked beside her carrying a small box. "What's that?" Clara asked. "Marco let me take home some day-old croissants. He said they're still good, just not pretty enough to sell," Luis grinned. "I thought we could have them for breakfast tomorrow. Like a treat." Clara stopped walking, looked at her son, this beautiful, generous boy who'd learned from her struggles that food shouldn't be wasted, that day-old didn't mean worthless, that sometimes treats were just things others didn't want. He'd learned all her hard lessons. But now, maybe, he could learn different ones. Ones about stability, about having enough, about communities that cared for each other. "That sounds perfect, baby." She wrapped her arm around his shoulders as they walked toward home, a new apartment in a better neighborhood, affordable because of her steady job. Above the city, somewhere in his fortress of a home, Rafael Moretti was probably managing his empire, making the hard choices that kept his world running. Making deals, breaking rules, being the complicated, dangerous man he'd always been. But in this one corner of his life, in the warm glow of Rossi's bakery, he was still just Isabella's little brother, trying to keep a promise. Trying to prove that having nothing didn't mean being nothing. And Clara Torres, who'd once begged for garbage to celebrate her son's birthday, was helping him do it.
No debts, no strinas, no apologies.
Just work that mattered. In a bakery that fed more than bodies. It fed hope. And sometimes that was enough. The end.